5 months after relocating to the UK as a master's student, he sold his first car. Then he volunteered for a 12-month unpaid apprenticeship to learn the ropes. He left to build his own dealership in the West Midlands from a humble 12-space lot to 3 sites with over 60 spaces. At his peak, he was doing 7-figure months, and just when it looked like the next level was guaranteed, everything came crashing. After a season of reflection, he's rebuilding with systems and processes, gunning to become the #1 faulty and damaged car platform in the UK, fully automated. Meet Dr. Olatunde Banwo, CEO of Guaranteed Car Buys. His is a story of rising, falling, and restoration. This is the cost of the dream, where we examine success from 2 lenses, home and abroad. Grab a cuppa, sit tight, and if experience is your best teacher, do not learn from this. But if you are like me, grab a notepad and pen. Before we begin, like and subscribe and drop a comment. What dream are you building? Let's make that your accountability. My name is Mobile, your host on this podcast. Let's dive in. Hi, Dr. Tunde Banwo. You're welcome to our show. As you know, this show is called The Cost of the Dreams, and we are looking at success from 2 lenses. So, Dr. Banwo, when you hear the phrase, the cost of the dreams, what is the first memory that comes to your mind?
Hello, good day. Thanks for having me. Cost of the dreams. I mean, what comes to my mind is no pain, no gain.
Yes. No pain,
No pain, no gain. There's no such thing as free in life.
Okay.
Whatever you enjoy for free has either been paid for, is being paid for, or will be paid for. So, I mean, there's a cost of everything, so same applies to one's dream as well. You can't say you are a general in the army without having to go to war, so there is a huge cost to everything.
When it comes to your life and your business and everything that you do, in fact, your journey so far, both academics, everything, career, business, everything that you've done. When we say the cost of the dream, is there a particular memory, that it stirs your mind towards?
Well, I guess it all happens, and then sometimes it becomes part and parcel of you, where you believe you have a calling, and you chase your calling because you believe that's what you're born to do, and you're so obsessed with it, and you look crazy to everyone. You might find yourself having to explain yourself over and over again to your loved ones, your family, your friends, but it just looks like you're crazy because it looks as if you're running nowhere because you're not seeming to gain traction. But over time you get used to, sometimes being misunderstood, and it's all part and parcel of the cost of the dream, where people don't understand why you're doing what you're doing, and why you're having to put your all in it, So for me, I think with business and just with every other thing in life, it's there's got to be you've got to have a skin in the game in whatever you do, and that comes with a heavy cost. The cost, it might cost different things. It's cost people their lives.
Yeah.
It might cost you friends. It might cost you family. I mean, it might sound extreme, but it might cost you your time. It might cost you money. But I think the test there is a question of how convicted are you on the path you're on, whether it's in business or it's in life, in any pursuit. It's the strength of your conviction, basically, and that's what comes to mind.
I have a follow-up question.
Okay.
Who were you before the dream? If I were to meet you 15 years ago, who would I have met?
Well, so 15 years ago, I was in a juncture in my life where, I had the best of both worlds, especially given my upbringing. So professionally, I'd always had the professional edge, so to speak, because I come from a family of quantity surveyors, so to speak.
Okay.
My dad was a quantity surveyor. My dad's brother was a quantity surveyor. I started working with my dad just after my secondary school, and I learned through the ropes. Being a trainee, basically. So I then further studied quantity surveying in the university.
Okay.
But while doing that, I had amassed a wealth of experience in quantity surveying in practice. So, I did work with my dad. I worked with a few other companies. When I finished my university, I went on to manage a branch of my dad's organization in Abuja, which was a capital. And I soon thought to further my studies in terms of getting to the peak of the career. And for me at the time was getting chartership, getting chartered with the Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors. So I pursued, my professional career to the peak, which is, I was a member of Association for Project Managers, the Project Management Institute, a certified Prince 2 practitioner. I had a black belt in Lean and Six Sigma.
And this was 15 years ago?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. I went through the ropes in my pursuit. Now, at that point, right, I was at a point in my life where I was trying to make a decision as to whether to carry on with the professional path or to focus on business, because I've always done business. It's something I've always been passionate about. So I've always done business. So I was at a point where I was going to make a decision as to which way to go, and I sat down, being in a new environment at the time, having moved to the UK.
Okay.
I looked at those that have been successful, right, especially from African origin, in the environment, and I sat down and I carefully analyzed, because I was trying to see where I could get to, and I came to, I think there were about 4 categories I came up with at the time. The first category and the second category were very successful Africans that have migrated. They're very successful. They've put in 10 to 15 years, some 20 years into their chosen path. And these groups are people that went into business and people that went down the path of a professional career. They've risen through the ranks and files of their profession, and they were doing very well. Same as business, they started business 10, 15, 20 years ago, were able to carve out a niche for themselves, extremely successful. They've put in the graft, and they're pretty stable. All right. The next two categories were people, I would say, were in their intermediate level. So they were successful, not as successful as the first two categories, but they were on their path to that if they carried on. So these are people that chose to go rather, either through the path of pursuing their professional career or starting up a business. A lot of them were in their early stage, so probably average of about 5 years into whatever they were doing. I've achieved some level of success, quite relative, because if things did go wrong, it might be a struggle for them, but if they carried on what they were doing, they would be into those other category.
And why were you doing this analysis at the time?
Because the reason for the analysis I was doing was just because I think I recognized the fact that I was in a different environment, and I think it's quite important to understand the environment and to choose a path, early enough, rather than, choosing a path because it's convenient and then years down the line, having some regret or some doubt, so, so I just wanted to really understand what was achievable. And at the time, I had started as a part-time lecturer as well.
Okay.
But I was doing business as well on the side. And at some point...
Was this the time you came for your PhD or...?
Yeah, so it was after my master's.
Okay.
And it was when I started my PhD.
When you started your PhD.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because at the time, I never thought of doing a PhD either.
Okay.
It wasn't on the part of me trying to get chartership. I was told that my first degree wasn't RICS certified.
Okay.
Right? So I had to go through structured training with a construction-related firm.
Yeah.
I tried to get a job at the time, and it wasn't coming through.
Yeah.
And then I later decided to volunteer.
How did it make you feel that you were in this environment? You have had all this experience from Africa, worked with in your family firm for years, and you've done all these things, and yet you were not able to get a job. How did that make you feel at that time?
Well, I've got a couple of experiences that made me feel that same way. So for example, my driving test, I had to do it thrice, and I haven't been driving for years. It was quite alarming, and I have never sat in an exam in my life before and failed. As a kid. So having to do a test and fail as well.
Yeah.
But just like everything in life, you've got to come to terms with the fact that, different environment calls for different strategies and different modus operandi. And a good and realization of that goes a long way. Where you don't feel entitled to anything. Rather, you want to ask the question why. You're not dwelling on what happened or how it happened, but you're asking yourself the question why. And you've got to be mentally strong.
Yeah.
Because you've got to have the mindset of knocking on every door. And not feeling entitled on the basis that it's going to happen the way you planned it to happen, but willing and ready to adapt to whatever it takes to make it happen. I felt really down at the time. I mean, I can remember there was a time I wouldn't leave my house, without applying for at least 10 jobs every day.
Wow.
And I didn't land any. The first line was always, unfortunately. Unfortunately. And
this is with a master's, with your first degree, with your Prince 2, with your Lindsay Sigma.
Oh yeah.
And you were still not getting a job.
Yes. I mean, I've had jobs as well where they said, unfortunately, you're overqualified as well.
Overqualified. Wow.
You know, I've had situations where I've had to print off my CV, go on the internet, check out all the consulting and project management consultancy firms in town, literally walked up, on a daily basis, knocked the door, presented my CV to say I wanted to work. I wanted to work, wanted a job, and none seemed to work. I mean, when I was trying to get chartership as well, it was the same thing. And then I realized suddenly, look, it's 12 months, it's not the end of the world. I had another source of money, making money, which was business I was doing on the side, selling cars, shipping cars.
You started selling cars at that time?
Oh, yes.
As someone who had just come to the UK?
Oh, yes. Because I was into cars in Nigeria.
Okay.
Before coming, and I've always been passionate about cars growing up.
Interesting.
When I go into the UK, I think I probably shipped my first car within the first 4 months of me coming.
First 4 months?
Yeah. Because I was mega focused. Like, when I came in with a mission.
So you had a plan.
Oh,
you
yes.
had a plan when
it was
you
a
were
12-month
coming.
plan, and I just wanted to get back to work afterwards because I was getting busy in Nigeria where I was practicing consulting. We're doing consulting and project management consultancy for a lot of government parastatals and all of that.
Yeah.
And my dad had wealth and decades of experience, and I could see that wherever we applied for job, despite it was his CV and his company profile, if we weren't going to land a job, they were going to probably give him a call or communicate later on with him to say, look, this is the reason, but not to worry, he will be considered on others. And I just felt, look, my old man is not going to be here forever.
Yeah.
And the earlier I'm able to get, those boxes ticked for myself, the better. So I decided to just take a leave, 12 months, so when I came in with a mission. And
so the plan was for you to come here, get more qualifications, and basically go and take over the family business.
That's it. Yeah, that was the plan.
And 15 years later, you're still here.
Yeah. So you can imagine how disappointed my dad was.
15 years later, you're still here.
Absolutely.
Interesting.
Interesting. So that was the plan, at the time. And it's life.
That's good. All right. My next question is this. We've been talking about some ideas of the things you've been doing over the past couple of years. But what is the dream for you? What dream are you chasing? And is the dream at home or is it abroad? Is it here or is it back home?
That reminds me of a question I got asked, years and years ago. Because I used to attend a church where, it was like there was a career day, so to speak, for like the young, for the youths basically. And it's a one-on-one session where you get in, you've got 2-3 experienced people, including pastor. And, I got asked a question that completely changed my trajectory at a point. And the question is, what would you want to be known for? As a young guy, I had dreams, I wanted to do everything. I wanted to be everything, and that singular question got me thinking. And back to your question, I think the goal for me is to be an investor, and I think that's an embodiment of everything I'm doing or I would want to do. That's the end goal for me.
Okay.
And I consider myself a global citizen because I believe the world has become a global village. And it doesn't matter what part of the world you are, as long as you're able to apply certain systems and processes, tailored to certain environments in whatever you're offering as a service or product or whatever business you're doing. I believe the greatest gift we have in this generation is the freedom and it's the freedom to be where we want to be, do what we want to do, without being restricted. So for me, I see the world as, a world of opportunity, and, I'll be quite happy and glad to jump on any opportunity, regardless of the part of the world it is, as long as it fits into my overall goal.
So the dream is to be an investor.
Ultimately, yeah.
Okay. So when you say an investor, what are you really looking to invest in, if you don't mind me asking?
So, eventually, being an investor, I'm looking to invest into businesses,
Okay.
so businesses that fit my sort of value system, that fits my investment criteria, if you'd like, and business I believe in. I love scale, and businesses that will fit into a typical sort of return on investment or impact level, in the society, especially bridging gaps of, bridging certain gaps, and thereby making impact. Yeah, that's what I'm looking at.
Okay. I'm quite aware that, you after you finished your master's, you now pursued a PhD because you did not get the jobs you wanted. Sometimes one might expect someone who goes on to pursue a PhD to end up in academia. Why? What have you been doing since then? What have you been up to?
Well,
And yeah, just tell us your story.
I think me pursuing a PhD was not necessary because I couldn't land the job that I wanted.
Okay.
As I previously mentioned, my goal was in pursuit of chartership, right,
Okay.
at the time, and a part of the requirement was that I needed to go through training
Okay.
and quantity surveying or construction related company for a period of about I think it was 12 months at the time.
Which begs the question: why didn't you just do another master's?
Again, it was the reason why I did the masters I did in the first place, and again, that just reminds me there was a bit of an issue. So the masters I applied for at the time was advertised as being RICS certified,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
But it wasn't. And it was something I took up with the department,
Okay.
quite heavily. And, I could remember my head of or director of studies at the time saying to me, he's never seen a student that was as consistent in their pursuit from day one to the end, as I was. But that was partly because I took that up seriously with the department at the time on the basis that, look, that was my goal. And if it wasn't RICA certified, I was really disappointed about that, and that was why I had to either go try and get a job, in that sector. Eventually I ended up going to university, and I was like, look, I wanted to volunteer. I wanted to volunteer for that period so I could tick that box. And in the process, they were like, look, they had the job advertised. They were asking me if I applied for it. I said I never saw it. They were like, they're quite keen on having me on board based on my experience and all of that. Would I consider doing a PhD? And I was like, is it going to be free or would I have to pay for it? Deep down within me, I know I've got the capacity to do it. It's just something I never thought about or thought of doing at the time. Cut long story short, they then told me, look, if you're willing to do a PhD, we'll guarantee you a job, we'll guarantee you a supervisor that is RICA certified, and you'll be able to get it done. I came back and said, look, doing a PhD for 3-4 years is just way too long, and I was like, it's going to take me 12 months, right, to work in an RSA certified company or organization
Yeah.
for me to get chartership. And I asked the question, I said, look, would you consider me doing a PhD in 18 months?
Interesting.
I don't mind doing it for 18 months, but anything long other than that would be way too long. And I don't think it's something I want to do. So they said to me, look, I mean, it will be down to you. If you can put in the work, then that's fine. That wouldn't be a problem. And I said, yeah, I'm willing to put in the work. So they said, look, get us a proposal. Let's look into it. So that's how I got the proposal submitted. And that was how I jumped on doing the PhD. Although eventually I didn't do it in 18 months.
Okay.
You know, I got married in the process. You know, I was asking myself the question at the time, what am I rushing to?
Yeah.
You know, so I took my time.
Yeah.
And then obviously, because I started business as well on the side.
Yeah.
So I just took my time eventually. And I did it in 5 years.
5 years later.
5 years later, you know.
Awesome.
But,
I think the next thing I would like to ask you is, walk me through the exact moment. I think, and this question, you probably would need to answer it from two phases. Walk me through the exact moment, one, that you decided to leave Nigeria, in your case. And also, walk me through the exact moment you decided, after your dad had spent all the money and sent you here for 12 months, you decided you're not leaving and you're going to basically stay here. And 15 years later, you're still here. So walk me through that moment.
Well, I think it's been a bit of a journey. We're talking about the PhD now, or me staying over?
No, why? First thing,
Yeah.
why didn't you just stay in Africa and just continue hustling?
Oh, okay. The moment I decided
Continue
to come
building
over
the
here.
dream.
Okay.
Why did you even leave Africa? That's one.
Yeah. So yeah.
And then secondly, you were expected to come back and run the family business.
Yeah.
Why have you refused to go back? What has been holding you back here?
A couple of things. So in the first place, I didn't really plan to come over. I had a very busy life. I had, I was making progress. I was on a few big projects. I was managing a team. I was doing I handled a lot of procurement at the time. I didn't really plan, but like I said, sometimes regardless of what you do, you take a step back from time to time and you think to yourself, is there any way you could better yourself? Or is there any way you could be better prepared for the future of what you're doing? Especially if you're privileged to actually ride the wings, of your parents, for example, or having a family business, you just want to make sure that, you're actually prepared yourself to face the world out there. So for me, I never wanted to leave. I'd never planned to leave. I think the reality really dawned on me when I had one of my cousins, who is now in New Zealand, where we lived together, and he was really pushing, to leave the country at the time. And one of the days we were having a chat, and I was just like, you know what? I could as well achieve this bit, which I wanted to achieve, having to come to the UK to study, because my dad actually studied here.
Okay.
Right. And, having obtained his chartership from here, didn't need to go through having to do the professional exams, got a lot of exemptions from that because of his experience here. So, and the UK is actually where quantity surveying started.
Okay.
University of Reading, University of Portsmouth, so I thought, look, it might be an opportunity for me to just come and get that done. So that was why it dawned on me that, look, you know what, you could actually plan an exit where, it's a 12-month gap. It's not going to kill you, but if you're able to get that done, then that will be it for you. So that was the point where I pursued that. Secondly, after my master's, if my course was actually RICA certified, and I was able to get the chartership I wanted at the time, I wouldn't need to stay back. I would have just gone back, right? But I didn't want to leave without achieving the reason I came in the first place.
The chartership.
Yes, and that was what pushed me into obviously trying to get a job, because I needed a 12-month structured training, and then later I decided, look, you know what, I'm making money this other way. Why don't I just volunteer? If I could volunteer, I could tick the box as well. So, I approached the university to volunteer, and it was in the process of that they took me into doing a PhD, which I eventually did. So now me staying back, the decision of me staying back was as a result of a few other things. So I started a family at the time as well. My wife, came in, did a master's. Afterwards we had our first kid. She later decided she wanted to do a PhD as well. And it's been a journey since then. Had two other kids after that. So obviously, how it is when, as a young man, you've got your bag packed, you're ready to move any direction. But suddenly you've got family as well to look after. And sometimes you need to think a bit more long term. But aside that, I think I sort of saw an opportunity in an industry, which I believed, was a great opportunity. Because unlike in Africa, where people, don't necessarily have a routine of changing their cars so often, the industry is buoyant, but here in the UK, it's more like a cultural thing. People tend to change their cars every 2 to 3 years. The demand for cars, the volumes that you could do on a monthly basis, it would have been difficult to do that in Nigeria, for example. So I saw a gap there. And, obviously my market initially was exporting from the UK to Nigeria, exporting from the US to Nigeria. I did cars, I did trucks, but then when I decided I wanted to do a PhD, I felt like, look, I would want to do something here that I could actually oversee from start to finish. Because when I started, apart from exporting cars, I was doing parts as well. So every 3 months, I was sending a container load of parts down to Nigeria. So I had to travel as well to make sure that they're all sold, to come back. And it was quite difficult depending on people to get those done. So, it was a case where I wanted something I could have more control over.
How did you even get started in that space? I know you said you were dealing in that space in Nigeria prior to coming here, but how did you even get started in such a short time? You started shipping containers down to Africa and all the other things. It's not an easy thing to achieve.
Well, it's not rocket science on the other hand. I think I had, contacts, back in Nigeria in the automobile sector, from mechanics to car dealers, to body shop guys, and all of that, to part dealers, And for me, it was just, look, I'm here. What do you guys need? What does the market need over there? Is there any need that I could actually fulfill from this end, and make money off? And that was the goal for me. So I was constantly in touch with those contacts back in Nigeria to see what exactly the market needed. I was able to come up with a list. I was able to align those lists with what was achievable here. Because again, most of the cars we use in Nigeria are more like the American spec, whereas in the UK, they're more of European spec. So you would see variants in vehicle derivatives, like the make, model, and the shape of the cars, there were few tweaks and changes. Obviously, we're on the right-hand drive here. Back home, it's on the left-hand drive, So, was able to align a few bits. You don't use a lot of Japanese cars here. We use a lot of Japanese cars back home. The question is, what Japanese cars could I get hold of here? What parts can I get hold of? What's the value here? What's the value there? So did a bit of research. How can I send? How many engines will go into a container? What can I put alongside that to be able to make up the space, to be able to maximize, the container being sent? Did a bit of research on that. How do I send the cars back home? Were they going to go in containers? Were they going to go row, as we normally call them?
Yeah.
And did a bit of research on that. Try to get a few contacts. And I think one of the opportunities that I discovered very early on when I got here was, look, everything is all on the net. Okay. And if it's on the net and you check it out and you do your due diligence and you can pick up the phone, speak to the company directly, get the information firsthand, and you can move with that. And I think that made a lot of difference, because where I was coming from, it's not enough to just see something on the net. You need to be sure it's legit. You need to be sure, and don't get me wrong, you've got to do your due diligence as well. But ultimately, if you find it there, it exists, and you could actually do your research, you could speak to the company, you could send an email, you could make an inquiry on it, and you can make it work. You don't need a second party or third party opinion before you move. And that was what I embraced. So very early on when I came in, and as a student, I got registered with the Association of Project Management, for example. Within a span of about 6-7 months, I must have had something in excess of about 15 to 17 certificates on the basis of me attending various continuous professional development courses around the UK. So, again, I didn't know many of my mates at the time that were doing what I was doing, but I was doing those because I recognized the value in that. And I discovered that I didn't need a second opinion. I didn't need to ask a friend if we were traveling or if they were going a particular way. If I saw a program or a course I wanted to attend and I booked it in London, for example, if I needed to know the bus stop to stand to get the next bus or the next train to jump on, I could find that straight online. And as long as I could afford that cost, then it was a decision I could make straight away. So I was quite, like I said, I was on a mission. It was meant to be 12 months, and I was quite deliberate about every move I made at the time. So, yes.
So how did you now? How did you now navigate directly into almost focusing on the car dealership business?
So when I made up my mind that I was going to do a PhD, it then dawned on me, I've got to carve out a source of livelihood that's sustainable.
I mean, some people will think that the PhD will come with some sort of source of livelihood. So some people, when they're doing their PhD, they just focus on it. So why did you want to do other things with it?
I think one of the edge I've always had, even in my undergrad days, my master's and the PhD, was the fact, like I said to you, that I've been involved in the family business from the word go.
Okay.
So I sort of had an edge where I knew a lot about what's obtainable in practice. Throughout my university days, I never just schooled. I worked as well as schooled throughout. And I was always traveling to sites as well. And at the time we were handling projects quite predominantly around, the town where I schooled. So, I'll take trips down to the sites and all of that. So that gave me an edge, Second thing is, my dad was a learning person. And, if he had a new project, he would always order books, and I was at the front of doing that because I was doing a lot of ordering for him at the time for the books and all that. And I know that the resources I had at the time was enough to take me anywhere in the profession as far as I wanted to go.
Okay.
So what's helped me is the fact that I had gained a lot of hands-on experience in practice. So, and what I was doing in school academically was meant to land me there. So having the blend of practice and what is obtainable and the theory of it gave me an edge and it gave me speed.
Okay.
Where I wasn't feeling like I was actually doing a PhD per se.
Okay.
I had clarity, about what was obtainable in practice, and I had access to industry professionals as well.
Yeah.
And I knew where the gaps were, and I could research. I had, the experts I needed to speak to be able to gather data I needed, in my research and all. So that gave me an edge, and it saved me time. And that time I was saving from that aspect of things, I actually was able to double down on business.
Okay.
Then aside that, I had the privilege of working as a part-time lecturer when I started initially, and very quickly I realized that, I don't really want to get involved, in that sort of environment, because I just felt like, I don't know, and I just felt like I was built for more. And I'm not saying that that's not more, because we're not all wired the same way, if you get what I mean. But I just felt like, probably what to say is I felt more inclined to the business aspect of what I wanted to do, and so I doubled down on that. So when I was required, to come on board full time as a lecturer, I I actually declined that, because at the time I just felt, I'm cut out for business, and I just felt like that's what I really wanted to do.
You mean you had the opportunity to accept a full-time lecturer job in the UK, something that a lot of people actually strive for, and you rejected that, and you went directly into business.
Yes.
How many years after was this from the time you came to the UK?
Probably about 2 to 3 years after, because I had my master's done, and I immediately, probably within a couple of months gap, started my PhD, because I had already started having a conversation before I finished my master's. So I was able to.
So after a roughly a 3-year period, you were offered a full-time role as a lecturer, and you rejected that to stick to business.
Yeah.
What gave you the courage to do that? Were you already having some level of success doing your part-time car dealership business at the time?
Yes. So with my export business, I was already, I had an income stream that way, which I was happy was keeping me afloat. And when I decided to do the PhD, I felt like, look, I wanted to have a business here. And so what I quickly did was I did a bit of research and tried to identify someone that is experienced and has been in the industry, long enough that I could actually learn from. Because growing up, my dad has always spoken about a concept called pupillage. And it's the concept of being trained, whether as a trainee, attached to a company, or, so I've always believed that whatever I wanted to do, there's always a price to pay for it. And that price involved, you going to work in an organization that are doing what you want to do, whether paid or unpaid, and so I tried to identify someone that has, a business that's been operational in that sector with experience, and I was able to identify one, someone that's gone ahead, it's been in the industry, that's had experience, and I walked up to him and approached him and said, look, this is who I am, this is what I've been doing, this is what I'm looking to do, and this is what I'm looking to achieve, and I've been told a lot about you, and I've seen that, I've got loads to learn.
Yeah.
And
did he welcome you with both hands?
Oh yes,
really?
Oh yes, shockingly, and and he was like, "Look, there's so many fishes in the river."
Yeah.
And he gave me his card and he said, "Look, that's my card. That's my business card. Let's link up." And from there, we linked up. So when I got back from school, I walked down, to his dealership.
Yeah.
From there, the rest became history basically. But I learned a lot, enough for me to be able to understand the market, and understand, and learn a lot as well. So, and I told him, I said, look, I want to learn for a period of a year.
Yeah.
A year, I'm done. But whatever it takes, wherever you go, I want to go. Whatever you want to do, I'm happy to help. And and we clicked.
But
so yeah,
in that year,
yeah.
Did he give you an employment?
No.
It was not an employment.
It was unpaid, no.
Unpaid 12 months
Yeah.
apprenticeship.
That's right, yes.
You finished your bachelor's, you're done with your master's, you're pursuing your PhD, you took 12 months.
That's correct, yeah.
Unpaid.
Unpaid, yes.
To learn.
That's right, yes.
It's not something that we're used to, especially here in the UK.
Yeah.
But what did that 12 months do for you to establish you in that business?
I would say the 12 months gave me 10x, probably 12 years worth of experience, so to speak.
Wow.
Because the 12 months gave me a solid foundation, because it's one thing learning about business, it's one thing being present and learning through the daily decision making and daily operations, and daily decisions, to run a business, the ups and downs, and you learn more. I mean, they say experience is the best teacher. Not necessarily because it is the best teacher, because experience does leave you with scars sometimes.
It's the most painful teacher.
Yeah, but because when it leaves you with those scars, you can't gainsay, you can't, you can't. No one can argue with you on a scar you've got.
Yeah.
You get what I mean? You live to tell the story, not the other way around.
Yeah.
But again, one thing I do believe is that you learn from your predecessors, right? You learn from your predecessors. It might come at a cost, but that cost is not comparable to the cost of learning on your own and making all the mistakes in the books. So it was part of the cost of, obviously.
What did you what did you do after that 12 months? And in fact, before that, how did you even survive? How did you survive before this, during this period we were
So
talking
during
about?
that period, I didn't stop my export business. I was still doing that. Rather, that gave me an exposure to see other sources where I could source for stock for my export business.
Okay.
So I wasn't doing much at the time, but that kept me going.
Wow.
It also gave me an opportunity to try and fail, because I then started buying a few stock for myself.
Yeah.
That I was looking to sell just to test the market.
But what was the arrangement? Did you have to show up for work every day as well? Or
I didn't have to show up for work every day.
Yeah.
But I pretty much showed up every time, except I had something important. And, it wasn't a day job. It was a 24/7 job. Just to give you an idea, I was that busy in the process where I rented an apartment, for example, and I could tell you for 6 months, I never had to hoover the floor because I was barely living in the house. Whenever I got in, it was just to have a little rest, have a little nap, and off I went. But I knew that I had a limited time to do whatever I needed to do. So I had to get really focused on doing that.
Did you have a family at this time?
No, I didn't.
Okay. Because I was wondering how your family would have survived.
Yeah. No, I didn't. And I didn't. And even when I got married,
Yeah.
we didn't rush to start having kids immediately
Okay.
because we had goals as well, milestones that we wanted to achieve. So my wife
Okay.
went for a master's. She needed to finish, and I was, establishing my business at the time as
Yeah.
well, so yeah,
So
quite a bit of dynamics there.
so after the 12 months, you then went on to get married and
That's correct, yeah.
okay,
And I established,
and then you established your business.
yes.
Tell us about that business. How did the business go? And
So yeah, it was a bit of an experience, right? And obviously I started from selling cars at home,
okay,
to having my first dealership at the time that could take about 12 to 15 cars, pushing it,
okay,
and I knowing that I was still doing my PhD at the time. I needed to put a structure around the business where the business could function without myself. So one of the key things I did was employ um, a manager that had experience in the business,
okay.
and that gave me a bit of a leverage, in terms of being able to pursue other things,
So you became an employer, even though you were a student.
Yeah, technically, yeah. That's right.
Were you even permitted to do this? Was it?
At the time,
Yeah.
I believe the requirement
Yeah.
for being a director didn't necessarily just had to do with the fact that you could be a director and have to attend your board meeting, and that could still fall under the permitted time
Okay.
because I wasn't physically,
Okay.
I had my time to put in my academics, but
Okay.
I could
Yeah.
oversee stuff as well.
Interesting.
So that will fall under my threshold
Yeah.
of my maximum hours if I was working.
So you were technically
and there was no express
Yeah.
restriction that said I couldn't be
Yeah.
self-employed.
Yeah,
At the
yeah.
time it was quite open that you could only work because
Yeah.
I think possibly at the time it wasn't, it wasn't sort of heard of where you're student and you're employing. So it wasn't really something
Yeah.
that was zoomed into, and there wasn't an express restriction on there like
Yeah.
later because that later came into place.
Okay.
Yeah, where you couldn't be self-employed as a student.
Wow.
But at the time that
Yeah.
wasn't the case.
Okay.
So yeah,
Wow.
I had a bit of a leeway there.
Wow. So how did the business go? Was it always easy? You started in a 13 car space. What happened? Tell me about the
And then
business.
later scaled to 50 to 60 car sites.
Wow.
Later scaled to having 3 sites and about 25 staff, both casual staff and full time as well.
Three sites
Yes,
and 25 staffs
at a point, yes. And
in this UK.
oh yeah.
I, I hope you know this is not like, it's not usual at all. I mean, how were you able to cope with all this, and to what extent did the business scale? And how, I mean, I've run a business in the past where I had about 12 staffs. I had one business space. And I remember almost going crazy, So, and you're talking about 3 different sizes. If you just take us a little bit back and how you scale the business.
Okay.
Yeah. And how did it get to 3 size, 25 staffs from a 12 car lot, 12 space car lot you had? How, I mean.
Yeah, so I think one of the things was doing what I was doing at the time. I was able to get a stocking facility that enabled me to buy more stock. Obviously, with the car business, the more the stock you have, the more validators you possibly need, the more cleaning materials you need to clean them down, the more space you need, and at the point, the more people you need on sales as well because of the volume of calls that'll be coming in or inquiries that'll be coming in, and eventually I later carved out another niche for myself at the time, which was in car finance, and I was doing because I noticed the gap, with you know, people that don't really know if they'll get a car on finance and not necessarily looking at cars, but looking at finance because they can afford to buy it outrightly. And there was a shocking statistics, at the time, if I remember, that showed that about 70 to 80% of people in the UK that own a car owned it with some sort of loan. So whether it's car finance, HP product, PCP product, or bank loan, or have lent money from friends and families.
How many percent?
At the time, if I remember, I think it was about 70 to 80%.
My God.
Yeah, so I came across that statistics that, so I saw a massive market there. That's one. Secondly, at the time, at a particular point in time while scaling, I got into digital marketing accidentally. One of the times where things were really slow, and I'm always seeking to get more knowledge to understand things better. And then I understood the concept of marketing online, where you are driving a lot of traffic to your site, you're converting those traffic to inquiries, and you're converting those inquiries to sales. And then I started thinking, how do I apply that into my business? And I had a few attempts at marketing my business at the time in a way where, I could drive traffic directly because there was a lot of over reliance on companies like AutoTrader who dominated the market at the time. And I was looking at it AutoTrader.co.uk, AutoPavilion.co.uk, which is my company name at the time now. Why can't I be AutoTrader as well? Why can't I get the traffic? But I didn't really understand set aspect of the marketing at the time. So what I then did was I was spending a lot on paid ads just to be able to drive traffic. But I discovered that the quality of the inquiries were not strong enough.
Yeah.
Because at the time, AutoTrader was like the Google of the car trade.
Yeah.
And we were a household name as well. So if anyone wanted to buy a car, the first place they would jump onto is AutoTrader to see what they wanted to buy. In the process, I later discovered that, look, I could put myself out there as a service provider, and that could actually change the narrative. So I was thinking, what service could I offer? That is in tangent with what I was doing on cars. And then obviously I came across that statistics at the time on the volume of, trade that was going through finance, So I decided to I looked into it. And while I was looking into it, there was a referendum when, UK left the EU, so to speak, and there was a bit of shift in the market at the time. So at this time you were having the BMW 5 Series, M Sport, you're having the Audi A4 S lines, where you have them for a couple of days and they just fly out, and then we got to this period because a lot of them were bought by Eastern Europeans. They were looking for a reliable German car they could travel down to in the summer. And there was no issue really. There was a lot of movement across the borders. People were buying cars for export that was seamless. They would buy a car, drive it down to Europe, and back. So there was a shift in the market where the Europeans started thinking, you know what, are they just telling us to leave? So a lot of them weren't spending on cars anymore.
Wow.
Most of them were having to ship money back to their countries, and just live a minimalistic lifestyle. And I was thinking, so this distorted the market. And I could remember I had, I took a trip for a week that December, and I was thinking, how do I steer this around? And I then discovered, I was like, look, I think I'll probably target more English customers, buy more English cars, that more English customers will purchase because they're more relaxed. They didn't feel, they had to live with the EU sort of, but living wasn't the issue at the time, but it was the way they felt, so you could see that in the market, the ripple effect of that.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of them, the English customers will buy cars on finance because I was looking at the statistics again of my customers.
Yeah.
Over a period of time, I discovered 70% of my customers were, Europeans.
Yeah. 70%.
Yeah, 70%.
Wow.
So I was thinking, okay, so this is the part that is now being hit. How can I turn that stat around where 70% are more Europeans and the other, 70% more like English people that were chill, that were bothered about the changes and the referendum and all of that.
Yeah.
So I then saw that, look, there is a gap in finance.
Yeah.
If I could become a specialist in that, which I was doing already, by the way, at the time, so I knew a few lenders that would consider, lending to prime customers, subprime customers and all of that. So,
But did the business take a hit at this particular point?
Oh yes, it took a hit, and I was on a fast lane. So at this time, I was privileged to sense that hit early enough. So I was already strategizing on how to navigate that. Even when a lot of other people in the industry weren't like very conscious of it. So I then got back. I remember.
Let's talk numbers.
Okay.
Right? Just give me a range. What sort of numbers were you doing before the Brexit? And what sort of numbers, what sort of hits did you take?
Okay, so I'll put it this way, yeah. When I started with car sales, one of the things that attracted me to the business was, if you did things right and you bought the right type of stock, you could do 200% stock turn a month. And that was quite impressive to me. And I was thinking, 200% stock turn? And those were the days where when you're buying a car, you could tell how long that car is going to be, how long it's going to last. And you could have cars last an hour before they get sold. You could have cars last 10 minutes where you literally advertise a car. You get a call from someone from London saying, look, I'm on the motorway driving down to you. Please don't sell that car. I'm having it off you. And the stock turn was crazy. And those were the things that, attracted me to car sales at the time, because I saw, an industry that wasn't well understood the way I was taught. Because don't forget that I was leveraging on the experience, of my mentor at the time.
Yeah.
So I learned a lot from his own years of experience and his own years of, graft.
Yeah.
And all of that. So that gave me an edge. So there was 200% stock turn at the time. Now that gradually went down to as low as 60-70%. So if you were doing really well post Brexit as a car dealership, and you're doing 60%, 70% stock turn, so you can imagine, and that's you doing extremely well. So you can imagine what the other segments of the market or smaller independent dealerships were facing.
So, but you see, I think you're speaking in dealership language now.
Oh, okay.
I think what most of our audience will probably want to know, and you could if, without being very specific, could also give us a range.
Yeah.
So, for example, you could say before Brexit, we used to do about £10,000 in a week.
Yeah.
And after Brexit, so in layman's terms.
So numbers of what I would say is, imagine we're doing 200% stock turn, like I said.
Okay.
So if you're doing 200% stock turn, means that you've got, say for example, you've got 100 grand in stock. You're able to flip £200,000 turnover a month of 100,000 in stock.
Interesting.
Advertised, right?
Wow.
So again, if you've got 20 cars, it means that you could sell 40 cars a month.
Wow.
Right? And that's based on you doing things right and buying right as well.
What was the average number of cars you were selling a month at this time?
Is that before Brexit?
Before Brexit.
If I remember, I would say probably circa 50 to 60 cars.
50 to 60 cars a month.
Yeah. I mean, when I changed the model to the finance model, it took me about a year to replace, because the deals I was doing at the time, 90% were either outright purchase, card or cash or bank transfer, 10% finance. But then I zoomed onto the finance and tried to make the finance 90% and the outright purchase 10%. It took me about 12 months to actually flip that model on the head. And it took me probably another further 12 months to increase the number. So at a point, I was doing an average of about 100 cars a month. And we're doing probably 800 to, at the peak of it, probably about 800 to £1 million in turnover on a monthly basis. Yeah.
800.
Yes, to £1 million.
To £1 million.
Yes. And
in turnover.
In turnover, yes. Monthly, yeah.
Monthly.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Oh my God. And this is you just after you've come to the UK, you've started doing this now. Have you finished your studies at this time?
Yeah, I had, yeah.
Yeah, you finished your PhD.
Yeah.
So this, I'm just guessing, this was about 5-6 years into
this
after you came to the UK.
Probably about 7 years.
7 years.
Yeah.
After you came to the UK, you were doing £1 million a month.
Yeah, 800 to £1 million a month. I was doing in turnover. At the peak of it, and that didn't come with his downsides, because again, don't forget that this model was completely new.
Yeah.
Right. I was working on a very high gearing.
Yeah.
Because I was learning and growing at the time.
Yeah.
And I quickly realized as well later, with benefit of hindsight, that sometimes geometric growth as well can crumble a business.
Ooh.
Right? Because things came crashing at a point. And you've got to grow with the right systems and processes in place. Otherwise, it could have a massive negative impact on the business as a whole.
I just want to reiterate. You said geometric growth,
yes,
could crumble a business.
That's right. Yeah. I know it's would I say counterintuitive, because obviously what we've all come to terms with, as people in business, like, growth is a good thing, and everyone wants to grow and everyone wants to build a business. But growth as well, can be a bad thing as well for a business. And what I mean by that is, you need to get the right foundation basically for the business. So in my case, it was more like, you were working a model, it was costing a lot, right? So I was generating leads, I was spending silly money in ads, driving in customers, at the time, but I wasn't working on an automated system. So I was working on a call center. I had call center staff. At the point I introduced 2 shifts, we were working pretty much around the clock. Things were being done, a lot were being done manually.
Yeah.
And again,
so you were not thinking of digital transformation. Your business had not transformed.
Yes, at the time I can say that. Although, it wasn't fully digitally transformed. We were using the digital transformation on some other side of the business.
Yeah.
And I was trying to build some other, the digital transformation on some other side of the business. But as you know it, one of the most difficult things to do is, you running a business, on a scale, on a day-to-day, and you trying to build the systems in place at the time. And because it was pretty much a place where we were doing a particular thing and started doing something else, advertising in a different way, and pretty much started waking up to double the number of inquiries we're getting. So you could see the level of pressure on a daily, and with the system that couldn't handle that.
Yeah.
And we're forced to, obviously, shrink things, just sort of control things. But then it's a mission.
Being a business consultant, I'm reading in between the lines of what you're saying.
Okay.
So when you're talking about shrinking things,
Yes.
are you now laying off staff? Are you now
Not
closing
necessarily
some?
laying off staff, but we're trying to reduce because there was a lot of waste. Right? A lot of waste. So say, for example, you're getting 60 inquiries a day. All of a sudden, you start getting 120 inquiries a day. Right? You used to have about 5 staff that gets given 10 inquiries a day, and they meant to just the 10 inquiries, speak to them over the phone, and the ones they're able to get hold of, they then propose those given their circumstances. Amidst that, they'll normally have a 40 to 50% approval rate. They then try to deal, meaning they will probably typically get, typically they would normally only be able to speak to half of the leads, 50% of the inquiries, right? Probably 5 out of 10 each, right? Out of that, probably 40 to 50% approval rate. So you're looking at 2 or 3 approvals.
Yeah.
And then they'll be able to deal 1 a day in terms of sale.
Okay.
And then probably 1 on another day, probably along the line during the week or so. Now, without the right systems in place, you don't know what is being said per se, right? Rather than standing over the shoulders.
Yeah.
Listening to every conversation, being in the room. You don't know if they try to ring the customer during working hours, what time of the day. It's just a case, I've tried to reach this customer and, not get hold of them.
Yeah.
Have they send them an email? Have they send them a text message? Have they send them a WhatsApp message? And did they drop them a voicemail? What did they say in the voicemail they dropped them? Is that enough to get the customer back on the phone, ringing them back to say, I missed a call from you?
Yeah.
So on every level, and there was wastage, right? Wastage in terms of deals, in terms of inquiries, and you just want to keep things controllable. But you can only do that when you have a robust system that is able to handle your inquiries and process them. So these were the gaps, but again, it was a learning curve, but it was a big and steep learning curve. It was a big and steep learning curve. And to be honest, that phase of my life went and is formed the core of every other thing I do.
So what do you mean by it went? Like, okay. So you sort of achieved this summit, everything was going up.
Yeah.
Right. Brexit came. Would you say Brexit was the catalyst to things turning bad, or?
Well, I wouldn't say so. Brexit did affect the industry.
Okay.
But it was a catalyst to me doing higher numbers, because when I got the model right, which was probably 2 years after, I think, or a year and a half after, I was able to turn that model around and focus on that segment of customers that were more relaxed.
And then
I was able to scale more.
You scaled even more than the 800,000 to 1 million?
No. That was at the peak of it when I scaled up to that.
Okay.
Right? So Brexit wasn't precursor to things going down. Yes, it did impact the market.
What made things turn bad?
I think what made things, like I said, I was working on a very high gearing, so the business had quite an appreciable level of debt in it.
Okay.
And because of the model I was running, which was entirely new, I didn't have a script for that.
Yeah.
I wasn't taught that.
Yeah.
You get what I mean? It was just me seeing an opportunity, and based on the level of experience I had at the time, which was obviously not adequate, I tried to make the most of the opportunity, it wasn't just sustainable. So I'll give you an example. So you imagine you running at a scale, having to rely on one source of leads. So say, for example, you're running Google Ads, you know, and you're running a business, for example, that was doing probably £1 million a month in turnover, for example. You know, by the way, it wasn't the last year I did that.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't last year of the business that did that. That I was able to hit that. But again, like I said, that it wasn't sustainable.
Yeah.
You know, because I was flipping around, you know, the stock quite a number of times a month. So you imagine running at that scale, relying on one source of inquiry, you know, for example, and then you get hit with some of your ads being disapproved, for example, by Google, and it taking you 2 weeks, for example, to get that rectified.
Yeah.
Right?
That
Now, what's
can
the
be,
impact of 2 weeks on that sort of operation?
Yeah, that can be a major hit.
And then you've got your overhead there. You know, you've got your staffing costs. You're not going to turn around to your staff to say, look, you know, we've not done anything in the last 2 weeks, so sorry, we can't. You get what I mean?
Yeah,
So, you know, but it was, you know, it was a tough one. It was a tough one. You know, it was a tough one. And if I was to do things, I would do things a lot differently now. You get me?
So let's just touch on that.
Okay.
What's one thing you would do differently?
One thing I'll do differently is what I'm doing at the moment with my current business, and is I'm building the right systems and processes in place.
Okay.
Right systems and processes in place. You know, where I'm able to replicate my salesmanship through my systems and processes. Right? I'm not having to rely on people. I'm not having to rely on someone doing sales or me overseeing or overlooking or overhearing sales conversations, and me being able to, there's a place for obviously auditing sales calls to be able to know, you know, and help salespeople obviously to be the most. But
was that the problem of the first business? Was that what?
It was part of it.
Yeah.
It was part of it, because sometimes you would experience a dwindling level of sales. Okay. And this is the problem with it. Sometimes when you have a situation where you're working on, you know, the cost of labor is quite high in the UK.
Yeah.
You've got very high overheads.
Yeah.
You get me? You can't afford not to be selling. You can't afford not to do your numbers.
Yeah.
You get what I mean? Again, you know your numbers, because every other person working in the business, you know, are focusing on different aspect of the business.
Yeah.
Right? So, you know, you're having to depend on a salesperson, for example, you know, that has just been recruited, you know, trained, and, you know, is 30 days into his job to be able to do, you know, 20% of the sales that's required for the month. You know, things don't happen overnight.
Yeah.
And, you know, a lot of planning needs to go into that to ensure that the business could absorb the shock of not doing those numbers over an appreciable period of time.
Yeah.
You know, those rather than obviously, you know, being enthusiastic on the fact that you've done these numbers over and over again and believing that, you know, you'd always do your numbers, you know, so you know, I had a level of optimism, you know, which is quite good. But, you know, as a business, you know, with benefit of hindsight, you know, you needed to do a lot more planning, a lot more intention needs to go into that, aside just the numbers. You get what I mean?
If you were to, I mean, it seems like you have since pivoted and you're doing something different now.
Oh, yeah.
But would you build with the same level? Because you had a lot of credit from in the other business, you were a lot of debts in the other business. Would you encourage someone who is, I mean, are you currently still doing business with a lot of debt, or?
No, so I'm working a lot differently now. And in fact, one of my goals, one of my goals is to bootstrap business in a way where I'm not having to rely on funds to be able to grow the business, right? Rather, I'm leveraging on systems and processes, right, to be able to achieve the same thing essentially, right? So we live in a digital age. If Amazon had to buy all the stock they've got on Amazon for sale,
Yeah.
then Amazon may not have any money in the bank.
True.
You get what I mean? If Uber had to own all the cars, that they run, you get what I mean? It would be a complete different story.
Yeah.
If Airbnb had to own all the apartments and houses on Airbnb, so yeah, I think we live in a digital age at the moment, and one of the key things is we always have to leverage on the digital capital, I would say, in our businesses, as much as possible, because that offers the highest return on investment without deploying the capital.
Yeah.
And that also helps scalability as well.
But how long? I mean, two questions. I mean, you had built a tower, something that was quite big from the other business. How far was the fall? When it came crashing, what did that look like? What did that mean? And then how long did it take you to even pick yourself up and think about the next thing to do?
I think mindset is everything. And sometimes when you climb a ladder from the first step to the second step to the third step, and you're on step 10, and you woke up, all of a sudden you find yourself on step 2. The beauty of it, in a way, is the fact that when you look around on step 2, you recognize that this is step 2. And suddenly you're thinking, first of all, you live in denial, thinking, what's happened? And, oh, you know what? And you tell yourself some sort of stories. But the second stage is you accept that, look, I'm actually in step 2. But you know what? It's just happened. But I need to work my way back to step 10 and even beyond. So you come to terms with that and acceptance. And usually the quicker you come to the acceptance, the more peace you find and the more focus and grit you're able to deploy.
How was that for you? You just gave the analogy of being, you used to be on step 10, then suddenly you find yourself on steps way below it, but you then have to realize that you are on step 2, and then you are trying to walk yourself back to where you used to be.
And beyond.
And beyond. How did that feel? And what did that mean? I've been in a similar situation And for me, it meant, I lost the house, for example, lost the business. I had to take my family. And we moved back to my parents' house, the house that I was in as a teenager. Probably a story I will tell another day. But in your case, what did that look like?
Wow, it felt like my world kept crashing. Where it then looks as if you've never made the right decision in your life. And it did take me time psychologically even to get out of that.
Yeah.
Because for a good period of time as well, I was always looking for a validation for whatever I wanted to do, because I just felt like I wasn't in the capacity to make a decision that was a serious decision, because I just felt like it does affect your confidence level. And that's why, that's what I said about the denial phase.
Yeah.
You get me? Because 1 minute is like, oh, you didn't make that decision, or you didn't do that, or, and the other minute is like, it's tough. It is tough. I'm not the type that could easily explain pain, because I don't dwell on negative. But probably people around me would have been in a better position to explain.
You are laughing about it now, but it's
deep. Sometimes, when you cry about something and it turns to laughter, then it is deep. But over time, I think life is a journey, and it continues to unveil as we get on. We don't see it all, per time. We're still on a journey. I'm still on a journey at the moment. I'm not where I used to be. I'm not necessarily where I want to be. And there's still a journey ahead. But we can only say per time, on what our experiences are. So it was a very difficult time. I had to recalibrate. At a point, I gave myself a target of 6 months to reinvent myself, basically. And I sat down and I was doing so many multiple things, and I was like, look, I want to get 5-6 sources of income. I was working, I was learning. At that period, I was just so resolute. Sometimes I go 48 hours without sleeping. Wow. I sleep after every 2 days, because I was just on a mission.
My God.
I just felt like, look, you know what? This is the least I ever want to be in my life. And I need to do something quickly to get out.
Wow.
So yeah. I think, and above everything, for me, it was more like, I was not on a journey to prove myself to anyone, but I was on a journey to prove myself to myself, so to speak. I just wanted to reinvent myself. I just wanted to rewrite my story. I just, and I think that's one of the most.
And I'm guessing by this time,
yeah,
obviously, the staff have had to go. You've had to let go of them.
Yeah.
I'm guessing the 3 garages had to shut down.
Yeah. I mean, I just remembering as well, through that period, I was actually down. I wasn't well. I was just remembering, I wasn't well. I was actually down. I was in hospital. I couldn't believe, everything just took me completely off balance. It affected every aspect of my life.
Yeah.
And I just had to pick myself back up. I had to pick myself back up. And to me, it was always like, look, if there's ever been anything to you, then this is the time that you need to get up.
You need to prove it.
Yeah, and I appreciate, a lot of people might not go through, half of that stress level. A lot of people might not even survive it. So I count myself privileged to have, to have been through it and somehow, survived it. Yes, because a lot of people just wrote me off completely. Look, that's it. That's the end. Yeah. I had friends that looked at me as well and said, look, that's it. You never have two opportunities in life. You had an opportunity and you blew it. In as much as you made sure that you provided a platform for others as well. But then you really know who your true friends are.
Well, how did that make you feel? The way they wrote you off like that?
Well, yeah, on one hand, I felt disappointed. I felt betrayed. On the other hand, I was laughing deep within me because,
Wow.
I just felt like things happen for a reason, and I was experiencing something new for the first time in my life where things didn't actually go to plan in a mega way. So deep down within me, I've always believed that, look, there's been more to me, right, than myself. And I've always believed that life is and has never been about myself. And obviously, my faith helped me massively through the period. Because I always say, whenever I'm going through...
How did it help you? How did faith help you?
So whenever I'm going through a troubling time, I always need to know three things to know that God is in whatever I'm going through with me. First of all, is deep down within me, regardless of how turbulent it is out there, I always feel the peace deep down that, look, you know what, the storm may be there, but it wouldn't last long, right? And I've grown to understand that the presence of storm doesn't mean the absence of God. So first of all, that deep peace deep within me is one thing I always try to know. The second thing I try to establish is, when the storm is over, do you have a blueprint of the next phase? Sometimes I do, because my question is, when that storm is there, I'm always asking God, what is the reason for this? Why is this happening to me? God, why are you having to take me through this? You get me? I get some clues sometimes I don't. And then I ask the question, what do I need to be doing, or what do I need to focus on? And sometimes when I have clarity as to what the next phase will be like, that peace doubles down, because I know that I'm coming close to the end of the storm.
Yeah.
And then thirdly, I get pockets of miracles that happen. So it might be a door I've been knocking on.
Yeah.
And suddenly opens. It might be, something that I needed that I probably didn't know that I needed, that comes my way. So when I see those three elements.
So for example, I remember going through, in my own time like that, even something as little as finding 20 pounds that I forgot in my pocket. That meant I could get fuel. Because it's I think one thing a lot of people do not understand, and it's probably something that is more unique to to the UK is that you could go from running a high-powered business like you used to a point where £20, £50, £100 becomes relevant again. So for me, in my own time,
Yeah.
even like a time maybe my wife would find £10 that I kept somewhere in a clothes or something like that. That was a miracle.
Yeah. That would make a lot of difference.
that was a miracle.
100%.
And wow.
100%. 100%. I was lucky, would I say, partly because, shortly after I had my crash, the lockdown kicked in and no one knew the world was going to shut down.
Wow.
So that gave me, I'm sure it would have been more brutal if it wasn't for that.
Wow.
So I just had to make sure I, secured, a couple of deals, where I just looked at where I was and I looked at what I could vouch for to say, look, you know what, this is what I can do. This is what I need to be able to do that and able to get some sort of leverage to start getting myself back on my feet. So I completely understand, where you're coming from, and I think one of the dangers. I think one of the dangers that as business owners, as entrepreneurs, a couple of quotes just came to my head. One is, turnover is vanity, right? Profit is sanity, right? And sometimes I just think, look, you know what? We can have best of both worlds, right? That's one. The other thing that's crossed my mind as well is overhead is a big killer. For most businesses.
Yeah.
And suddenly, apparently the business I ran wasn't exempt to that, and I'm doing things a lot differently now.
Yeah.
And I'm very cautious of that, because, a high percentage of your turnover might be fixed. In which case you've got to do a minimum number to be able to hit your targets, and suddenly sometimes you might have situations beyond your control that could affect those numbers. And depending on the sort of gearing you're working on, you could have a month that will kick you behind, and it might take you 3 months to recover from that. And hence the reason why, a business goes quiet within a month or two, if you're not prepared and you've not planned properly, to have a buffer, if you stop having an income as a business, if your sales stop today, the question is, how long can your business go without an income?
Exactly.
And that's like a litmus paper test. We all have had our fair share as young men, trying to make a mark, where sometimes we allow our enthusiastic selves overshadow, the practicality of what we're doing.
The reality.
But we've had to learn one way or the other. And hopefully we're better people. We understand things better now.
Awesome. What are you working on now? What has the business turned to now? What are you working on?
So at the moment, I'm working on Guaranteed Car Buyers, which is a car buying platform.
Okay.
It's a fully automated platform, specializing in buying damaged and faulty vehicles. With scope, obviously, for runners with no issues as well. The aim is to scale up to be the UK's number one faulty and damaged car buyers. Is a niche. with not so many players, because a full understanding of the industry from start to finish is required. And we've been able to develop algorithms, pricing algorithms. We only buy vehicles under 10 years old. It's a fully automated platform. We're able to give instant guaranteed quotation for your vehicle, saving you time and the energy, of having to get multiple quotes or go through, tire kickers that will give you a quote, come down and try and knock you down on price and all of that. We're just trying to make selling your faulty, your damaged car as seamless as possible, so you can draw the line and move on to the next. And we're able to offer those to those that know more about it, that are able to get it sorted and get it back on the road. And that's what we're doing at the moment, and looking to scale that.
Are you looking to sell your car so you can get some extra cash to spend on something more of a priority to you? Or to get some deposit together for your next car? Are you stuck in a dilemma of whether to sell, fix, or scrap your damaged or faulty vehicle due to the high cost of fixing it, which is either not feasible or currently unaffordable for you? Do you just need to free up the space on your drive or get your vehicle off the road because it's ran out of tax or without a valid MOT? We know you value every minute of your time and won't want to waste any entertaining tire-kicking strangers trying so hard to knock you down on price when selling your car privately. Or companies who quote you higher prices for your car only to get their feet through the door and try giving you silly offers with hidden admin fees and charges. Neither are you interested in spending additional money on advertising your vehicle without guaranteeing a sale. We specialise in buying any vehicle under 10 years old in any condition and any mileage. We understand the difficulties you may face when you cough out thousands of pounds to fix your car without having at least 12-month warranty on repairs, only to find yourself in a similar situation again months down the line. We take the hassle away. We pay what we quote, and no nasty shocks. Try out our new instant guarantee price offer and find out how much your car is worth as it is today. Whether it's a runner or non-runner, damaged or straight, insurance write-off or flood damaged. Whether it's parked on your drive, broken down on the roadside, or stuck in the garage. We'd come to you, pay you, and collect the vehicle. We guarantee we would buy your car and pay you instantly on collection. Sell your car today without the faff. No haggling, no hassling, and no headaches. Get an instant quote in less than 60 seconds and same-day collection with instant payment.
With the current niche, there are not so many players, right? And we're looking at getting things done cheaper, better, and faster for the customers. I'm looking at a situation where guarantee car buyers actually dominate that sector, because we're introducing new other products that will cover a wide spectrum and offer more options to the customers. And more transparent pricing where they're able to get the most for their cars. I'm looking. Guarantee car buyers will more than likely, be the de facto industry standard for pricing data for faulty and damaged cars. Guarantee car buyers will be the go-to for both dealers, mechanics, sole traders, to source the cars they want. It will be the go-to for dealerships that have got bad stock. I mean, stock that doesn't meet their stock criteria because they're faulty or damaged. It will be their go-to place to increase their liquidity because they're able to dispose very quickly of that and inject the funds into the stock that actually fit their profile. It will be the go-to place for insurance companies where they don't need to send their cars to the auction and wait endlessly for different quotations to come. They could literally load up their cars on, have a guaranteed price or have an option, to receive offers on it, and they're able to turn them around within a span of 24 hours, which is a day, to a span of 5 days with money in the account. So I am seeing a situation where guarantee car buyers would dominate a particular sector and be a de facto standard both for stock and for industry data, pricing data as well.
So from what you're saying,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm saying you've gone from having built a multi-million pound business to you are trying to build a multi-billion pound business now.
Yeah, you can say so.
And in 10 years' time, by God's grace, I think
Oh, yes.
we'll probably be a unicorn.
Oh yes. 10 years is a long time.
Is it? Interesting.
10 years is a long time, but yeah.
So you reckon that prior to...
Oh, it's doable.
In 5 years, do you reckon
It's doable.
could be a unicorn?
100% doable. It's doable.
100%?
Oh, the market is there. The market is there. I mean, for every business, the most difficult hurdle to cross is having customers come through your door. That is the most difficult, bridge to cross for every business. And any business that's been able to successfully figure that out, it's go market. And also, when you look at the size of the market, it's massive. It's all you can eat. So the question is, how far do you want to go? So that's doable. We're not in a rush to do that because we're making sure that we are able to leverage, on the digital transformation in the business. We're able to leverage on artificial intelligence to build a robust system end to end that is sustainable, and scale just comes on the back of it.
Are you currently seeking investors? Are you looking for investors for this business?
Oh yeah, every business is always open to investors.
Okay.
But we're not doing that at the detriment of, putting the structures in place that we believe is sustainable.
Yeah.
But we are quite confident that we're going to put a dent in the industry. We're quite confident on that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So I'm learning a lot from what we are discussing, and I hope the audience, I hope they are learning a lot from you also. And also obviously I'm sure that they are seeing that it's not a previous pastor that we used to have when I was very young. From time to time, he would say, to serve God is not to eat tea and bread. So I'm sure people can see that this comes, with a lot of sacrifice and a lot of cost to you. The journey has not been, should I say, a very easy one, but it's been one that...
Bittersweet.
Yeah, it's a bittersweet. Awesome. But if you are to describe a grind day that no one sees,
Okay.
but is the real price of your current life. So I'm basically trying to say, describe a day in your life now. What is the real price to the life you're currently living?
Well, I guess.
And also to the future you want to.
One thing I've learned is, compounding is the secret to wealth. And not just money alone, time, effort, activities. And when you talk about compounding, you're talking about your activities, your time broken down into daily routine, right? And that daily routine is a drive towards your ultimate goal on a daily basis. So you don't just wake up one morning and live the life of your dream. You know, you've got to put in the effort on a daily towards hitting that target life of your dream. You know, you don't just wake up to a multi-million pound business. You know, you've got to put in the time, you know, and I'm not talking about the operations. I'm talking about the strategy. You know, I'm talking about the planning. I'm talking about every aspect of the business, you know. So a question I typically ask myself every day is, what have I done today, right, that could compound into me getting me to where I need to be? And that's always a litmus paper test for me. You know, so when I step out on a daily, you know, it's a question I always ask myself. So whether it's 5 minutes or 5 hours, I'd need to take a step in the right direction and make a call in that direction. I need to chase up progress, you know, on something that is more strategic, that is beyond that day. You know, and sometimes it can be very difficult as well because, you know, you're living with current realities, right, which you have to deal with.
Yeah.
You're living with previous problems, which you have to deal with, and you're also building the future at the same time. And you can't be focused on the now and get to where you want to be tomorrow, and you can't be focused on the past. You know, so if you're focused on any, the other two will suffer.
Yeah.
You know, so where do you create the balance, and what does the balance look like? You know, and that is a typical challenge. You know, that we face on the daily, that I face on the daily, and I have to just make a deliberate approach. You know, I have to be intentional about not being consumed by the past, or not being taken or absorbed into the present, but also looking into the future and gearing my energy towards, you know, building that bridge.
Would you say that you currently have a semblance of work-life balance, or?
It's a tough question to answer because work-life balance is I mean, it depends on where you draw the line. and it's difficult, you know, when you're playing on the pitch, you know. Yes, you get to play on a particular position, for example, in football, you know, where you maintain a particular axis on the pitch. But in life, I think sometimes we have to play multiple positions. You know, and it's quite difficult to judge yourself.
Yeah.
You know, your competence by
you're the defender, you're the midfielder, you're the striker.
While you're still on the pitch.
Yeah.
I think those spectators might be in the better position. You know, but yeah, to be honest with you, I think work-life balance, I think that's a whole new topic for another day. But you've got to put in the graft, bro. There's no shortcuts. You know, anyone that's achieved anything spectacular in life, you know, it's. I know we've got a lot on social media these days that is just about the lifestyle. You know, people don't showcase the struggles they go through.
The graft.
They don't showcase the setbacks. You know, and sometimes when I see people that actually recognize or are vocal about their struggles, you know, regardless of where they are, I normally appreciate them.
Yeah.
You know, because it's so easy for us to just dwell on, you know, the what, and no one is asking the question how.
Yeah.
You know, so it's you've got to put it in the graph. There's no shortcuts. Wealth isn't built in a day. You know, success is not an overnight event. You know, and it's not a destination either. It's a process. You know, it is a journey. It's a journey. It's a journey. And the balance is relative to what part of the journey you are. You've got to know when to put your foot down, you know, when to accelerate, just like you're driving a car, when to apply the brakes, when to change gears if you're driving a manual, and what you have to do simultaneously if you're applying the clutch and changing the gears, you know, and maneuvering. So, work-life balance, I think it's a very subjective concept.
Yeah.
If I may say.
So it's fair to say, from your analogy, it's fair to say that is not necessarily your priority at the moment. In terms of you're more focused on the graft.
Yes, because I'm in a phase where I know that I need to put in my energy. Yeah. While I still got that. Yeah. You know, to make the most of it. But as time progresses, you know, I would have to downshift the gears. Yeah. And, you know, and be able to readjust that. But more importantly, I think the plan, you know, the work-life balance thing is all about you being able to manage other aspects of your life, you know, in tangent with what you're doing, where one is not taking a better part of you, and you're able to keep things in harmony. I think that's a skill that's required even in business, where you've got different moving parts and you need to keep them in harmony. In family, same thing, you know, spiritually, you know, same thing, physically, health-wise. I think we always have to attempt to be cautious and not just let other things suffer utterly because, you know, we're chasing our dreams. Because ultimately, those are all part of our dreams as well. Because if we're not healthy, you know, we can't reach, you know, what we want to reach in terms of our goals. You know, if family, you know, isn't prioritized, you know, would only reach where we want to go and discover that, you know, a part has been missing.
And
so
I think that leads me to my next question, actually. What aspect of your life or what relationship in your life would you say have suffered the most from you chasing this dream?
What aspect of my life has suffered the most?
What relationships have suffered
Probably
the
my
most?
wife is in a better position to answer that. But I would say my family. I would say my family, because again, you know, if you don't have an understanding spouse, you know, it would be very difficult to put in the graft that is required, you know, at certain points to be able to get to where you need to go or get to where you need to be. And it always has a bearing on them because, you know, you're out there, you're taking all the risk, and sometimes the consequences of your decisions affect them, because if you're affected, they're affected as well.
Yeah.
You know, so you know, I think that's a tough one. You know, and I think that could make or break you as well. You know, because, you know, if you're not privileged to have an understanding spouse, no matter how ambitious you are or how that can easily be truncated. You know, but on the other hand as well, I think the strength of your conviction also matters. Otherwise, you could easily get talked out of your dreams. You know, you could get talked out of your dreams. You know, and for me, I've come to points where, you know, my wife has looked at me and thought, look, you know what, I think you're crazy because it's like you're not seeing what's happening. Or, you know, I'd rather you be there than there. Or, you know, and stuff like that. But, you know, ultimately, you've got to dream. And none but yourself It's got the script.
Yeah.
So the responsibility is there
Yeah.
to be able to paint the picture,
True.
and paint the vision, and to be able to lead effectively.
Yeah.
Both your family, but the teams, to be able to achieve what needs to be achieved, or what needs to be done. So I think it's a great responsibility.
But if your wife were to watch this episode, she, I'm laughing because as I know how, what you described, I know how important it is. Yeah, in this journey, if you don't have an understanding spouse, like you said, it can make or break you. So if your wife were to watch this episode, what would you say to her?
What would I say to her?
Yeah.
Well, I'll thank her, because having a man like me in her life, I know could have frustrated, her so many times, could, I could have broken her so many times, knowingly or unknowingly, because when it comes to my dreams, sometimes I can be very ruthless or stubborn, and having a woman that would understand to that extent is a privilege. It's a privilege because I've seen a lot around. I've seen a lot of families where, issues have erupted simply because you have a man trying to chase his vision, things that don't seem to be working per time, and the family can't be patient to see things through. I've seen men sacrifice, sacrifice their careers, for the singular sake of peace. Some have lived thereafter with regret, and and vice versa. There are people that have sacrificed their careers for their wives as well, and that's paid off in the end. So there's no hard or fast rules to it, but having women around us or spouses that believe in us gives us a lot of leverage to be who we're actually called to be.
Yeah.
And that is a huge plus.
Yeah. So we will soon be summarizing. But I have a question. When all this is over, how do you want people who knew you to describe the way you carried this dream?
Well, if there's anything I want to be said of me is the fact that he came, he saw, and he conquered.
Yeah.
Now, however conquering looks like, it's not up to me. That's in the hands of God. But let it not be said that I had an opportunity in my lifetime and did nothing about it. I'll rather die trying than not try at all.
Yeah.
And that's the approach I have. I try to imbibe in everything I do. I want to give life my best shot. Destiny is in the hands of God. And some people have given life their best shot, but it's ended up not being good enough. But I want to give whatever I do my best shot, and whatever I believe I'm called to do, or wherever I believe I'm called to be, my best shot, where people could look back and say, he met with opportunities along his journey.
Yeah.
And he did all he could to capitalize, on them. My dad has had a very strong influence in my life. And I remember probably a year before we lost him, I was having a chat with him, and I asked him, given the journey you had in life, would you, if given an opportunity, would you do anything differently? And he paused and looked at me. A couple of seconds, and he replied. He said no. He shook his head and said no. And I was like, "Are you serious? Obviously you will have made mistakes. You would have. Are you saying if you were to do life all over again, you wouldn't do anything differently?" And he said no. We didn't speak much that night before I went to bed, but I later thought about that response deeply. And what came to my mind is that response is not coming from a place of I could have, would have, done something, but it came from a place of gratitude where you've chased your dream, right? You've given life your best shot, right? And you've done your best, really. And that's the place I want to be. Where I know that genuinely,
you tried.
I've done my best, and I think, that's what matters most.
Awesome, Dr. Banwo, that has been a really riveting discussion with you. Typically we'll close with some quick fire questions.
Okay.
Just to close us out. So, with everything you know now, if you were to do it again, where would it be, home or abroad?
Location wouldn't matter.
Okay.
I think it's about the mindset. It's about the principles. I think it's about the systems. It's about the processes.
Yeah, but I would want the straight answer. Where do you think the systems or processes, wherever it is, where has the infrastructure for what you are currently building?
Would house the infrastructure for
where has which location for what you're currently building, and this is quite unique to your own personal dreams. Where do you feel more confident building from? Is it home or is it abroad?
Where do I feel more confident
building in?
It's a difficult question.
Yeah.
Because it's no yes or no answer to me.
Okay.
I think it's a question of, I've had the privilege of doing what I'm doing from here.
Yeah.
For a market here. But if I have an opportunity to do something similar home, with what I've known, I'll do it.
Okay.
Like I said, it's a global mindset. Right?
But could you live home? Could you be at home? And when we say home, for you is it, where in Nigeria are you from?
Well, I'm from Kwara State.
Kwara State. Oh, okay.
Well, I was born and brought up in Jos. So I lived in Jos.
So for you, it's Nigeria, and
Yeah.
If you could build in one of the places now, is it here in the United Kingdom, or would you build back home?
If I was to build in
one of the places right now, let's imagine you did not have anything you were building currently.
Yes.
Let's just point out, maybe it was at that time of your pivot, you haven't really chosen a market. And you wanted to try again. Where would you build?
First of all, I'll build wherever I live to start with.
Yeah. Okay.
Right? Wherever I live, I'll build. Because in the early days of any business, you need to be on ground. You need to understand, the culture, and if there's a culture shift, to be able to address the market, but at the moment, for me, it wouldn't matter if I'm in Africa today, if I'm in Asia today, if I'm in the United States today, or if I'm in the UK. I think my greatest asset is the person I have become. So I've got the, like I said, global mindset at the moment. And I would happily embrace any opportunity anywhere in the world.
Wow. Okay. So what's one thing you'll never compromise again, no matter the opportunity?
One thing I'll never compromise again.
No matter the opportunity.
I think it's about systems and processes, because I didn't have a good understanding of that before. So I'll never compromise on it, because I believe that it's the founding block. I mean, put it this way, you've got also, different approaches to business. You could have an approach where, you're chasing money, or you could decide to build the machines that will print the money. Right? With systems and processes, I see that as building the machines that will print the money. Right? So while you can make money chasing money, that's not the goal. The goal is to build a machine that will print the money.
Wow. That's amazing. If you lost everything today, but could only keep one lesson, what would you keep?
One lesson. I think lesson. I think it's down to the core skill, and that's sales. Because that's the only thing that drives inflow. Whether you're selling a product or a service, or you're being a middleman selling something, I think that's a core skill that everyone requires. And no matter how innovative you are, no matter how creative you are, if you're unable to sell, you would always be limited, and, no matter how much you find yourself on the ground, no one is going to come and save you. You have to sell your way out, of the situation. And I think sales is a core skill that I think every entrepreneur should have, no matter how creative. And if you don't have that, I think you need to go learn it and acquire the skill, because it's going to get you out of any situation.
The last question. If someone was at that exact point you were in that period where we would describe maybe that was your worst period in business, if someone were to be in that same situation and they're watching this, what would you say to him?
I think one of the things I would say, again, you see, being in that situation, one of the key assets you have is your mind. Right? And when you're overwhelmed by the situation, your mind isn't functioning properly, there's only little you can do. You need to protect your mind at all costs. And in trying to do that is, don't look at how deep the problem is, right? No matter how deep the problem is, right? Look at what you could do on a day-to-day to get going, to get some traction, to take a step. Because eventually that's going to be an antidote. If you sit idle and fold your hands, you're going to, have a lot of the problems torture you. You could slip into depression. You'll be overthinking things. Leave the thinking. Just get busy. Get on. Whatever it is you can do. Whatever service you can do. Whatever, don't look at it as being above you or beneath you. If you need to do anything to keep yourself going, if you need to do anything to put food on your table, if you need to do anything to get some money in on a daily, focus on that and keep putting in the effort on a daily. Keep concerting your effort. Don't sit idle. Don't sit idle. Get the momentum. And those efforts would compound. Those efforts will compound. Because I believe, the way we're wired as men is, our work is our life. We tend to derive identity from what we do in most cases. And once we're able to be productive, no matter how small, there's a level of dignity that comes from that. Right?
Yeah.
And once we start to get that level of dignity, right, every other thing starts to fall in line because we're able to conquer our feelings. We're able to prove to ourselves, not anyone around us, that we're able to be productive.
Yeah.
We're able to get something in, and I think that's the greatest,
asset.
That's the greatest asset, and that's the greatest, and I think the greatest threat to our future as well is our past. Whether it's past success or past failure, is the greatest threat to our future. So let's not define ourselves by our past. It was just a journey. We've got a whole life in front of us.
Wow.
And what you've been through, it doesn't look in any way like where you're configured to be.
Wow.
So it is a phase, and that too shall pass. So you just need to keep focused. You could have a million things going through your mind. Never lose your mind. Never lose your mind. Cut off negativity as well. If people tend to remind you of your past success or your past failure, cut that off and focus on who you are and what you believe you're configured to achieve. Focus on that.
Wow.
Focus on that. And, I think, you might not be able to achieve massively on a daily. It might just be, but just keep the momentum. Just keep the momentum. It's tough. It's better said than done. But we've got to do that. I know some days I feel overwhelmed. Some days I've had situations where I've parked in a car park, dropping my kids at school, and I've cried my eyes off. I've never been someone that is emotional in my life. I've always been a strong person, and I've always been, but I've gone through those moments where, I just have to put myself back together, one way or the other. So, and those are the things that helped me overcome that period.
Wow. I think that's a great place for us to end this discussion. I had a great man once say to me that in life, in the journey of life, it almost feels like, when you are driving a car, you've got to look at your side mirrors, your wind mirrors, your rear view mirror, from time to time. But you must keep your eyes on the windscreen, because that's where you're heading to. So, Dr. Banwo, thank you so much for
It's a pleasure.
for joining me in this discussion. I learned a lot. I'm sure the audience would have learned a lot. Please, for you to keep seeing some amazing guests like Dr. Banwo, please do subscribe to this channel. Share this. I'm sure you know someone that would benefit from the discussion we've had today. Again, this is The Cost of the Dreams. I'm your host, Mobu. Berendi. And Dr. Banwo, how can people find you online? How can they get to know your businesses? We will sure try to leave some links in the but yeah, if you can.
Guaranteedcarbuyers.co.uk is my website.
Okay.
Yeah, and I would leave my contact. Obviously, you got my contact.
Yeah.
And so
are you on LinkedIn?
So, yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. Yeah.
Okay. How would they find you?
Olatunde Banwo.
Dr.
Olatunde Banwo on LinkedIn.
Awesome.
Yeah.
It's been amazing speaking to you, Dr. Banwo.
Same here.
Great pleasure, and I'm sure we'll probably have another opportunity to have you back, because I could talk to you all day, and it just feels like time should stop. But it's been an amazing time with you. We are grateful.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.